welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
Hello, Christine.
Hello, Rose. It's so good to see you, and it's wonderful to have with us today Heather Houston, who's joining us from Santa Cruz, California. And Heather is a singer, a songwriter, a recording artist, song leader, choir leader, and vocal coach. Did I get everything?
Yes, you did.
Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
Yes.
Pleasure to be here.
We are so pleased that we could get together. And I was just sharing a little bit before we went live about how your music has inspired me now for a couple of years. You came to my attention through Sage Levine, who you have a connection with. Mm-hmm. And she is also a fan, I'm assuming, because she was sharing your work with the people on her newsletter list. Your music is so earth-based, so earth-honoring, and so affirming for women and feminine energy, and that connection that we have, all of us, not just women, to the earth, and how important it is to nurture that. So do you want to share with us and our audience a bit about your path to doing such lovely music for the rest of us?
Sure. Well, I've always been really connected to the earth. You know, I grew up in kind of a rural part of Santa Cruz, out in the hills in Aptos near Corralitos, and spent a lot of time as a kid out in nature. I mean, I didn't have a lot of neighbors, and I spent a lot of time by myself with the elements. And that was actually my first experience of meditation and quieting my mind, was I would go up on the hill behind my parents' house and just sit and be quiet. I mean, this started when I was young, 7, 8 years old. So I've always been very connected with the earth and very connected with the water, being raised near the ocean. Yeah, and then in terms of women, I wasn't always deeply connected with women or my femininity. It was in my early 20s that I made a deep prayer to the universe. I just knew I needed to sing with women because I was singing jazz with, primarily men. And I was the vocalist. And these women, Tamara and Samantha, miraculously came into my life, and we started singing, and it really helped me dive more into my own femininity. It helped me open my heart to sing with these women, and I feel like the music that I create now really helps the heart of the world, right? Bringing the feminine spirit forward, bringing the earth spirit forward is really helping to open the heart of the planet.
I would say, based on my experience, that's exactly what it does for me. It's really quite lovely. And Rose, do you want to share what our question for our podcast today is, which lines up very much with what Heather was just talking about?
Right. Our question for today is, how does music help us heal? Especially in this time of climate chaos or just environmental chaos.
Yeah. Great question. Well, can I invite you to do a little exercise with me for about a minute?
Absolutely.
And we can see how music heals. So I'm just going to invite you to take a nice deep breath and then just hum. Good, and creating a little more space inside your mouth so that your vibration has room to move and travel through your body temple. So a nice deep inhale again. We're going to do that 2 more times and just noticing your vibration and where you feel it in your body.
Wow.
Yeah, so you notice you probably feel calmer, right? Your breath is more open. Your vibration moves stagnant energy in the body, right? And it also calls you home. So in a lot of native traditions throughout the world, they believe that humming calls the spirit home to the body, especially in the morning when we've been out traveling and dreaming. We call the spirit back into the body by humming and singing and chanting. And it just gets us really present and really connected. So I find that in my Art of Mindful Singing class, just that much will shift the energy of the whole group. If we just hum for 2 minutes and we go into mantra and chanting, it's so healing. And I think that music also, it connects to our inner world, to our soul, and to our heart. And I think in this linear culture that we live in, we're so disconnected from the heart and the soul of ourselves and of our communities and of the world. And music really speaks the language of the heart and speaks the language of the soul and really helps to unify the people in a place of heart and soul.
Beautifully expressed. Yes.
Yeah, especially we just sprang that question on you, Heather, and turns out it was exactly the right question for the right person. I'm just thinking because my background was in healthcare, but I'm also a teacher, and I'm just wondering, what if teachers took 2 minutes of every day, or maybe in the morning and after lunch, to do that with their kids? Wouldn't that shift the feeling in the classroom?
Absolutely. Bring music into the classroom more, because so music the arts have been so removed from school.
I'm thinking it would just be great to wake up in the morning and hum first thing before my feet even hit the ground.
The other beautiful thing about vibration and even just humming for a couple of minutes is it gives us a contrast between sound and silence. And so if you create sound and then you go into silence, the silence feels that much more silent. And you can go, I find for myself, I can go deeper into a silent meditation.
It's like it calls you to pay attention. And so the humming calls you're paying attention to that, and then you're more mindful when you stop. And such a simple step. And
so simple.
yeah, and I so think that's what we need in this time of chaos on so many levels, is to stay as centered as we possibly can. And that's why I've been playing your music more lately, because it helps me do that. And now I have another tool in my toolbox, which because my phone, my Spotify isn't always handy, but just to hum, that's profound. So Rose, do you have another question for Heather?
So I was just interested in, what is your muse? How do you create your music? You're out in nature and something calls to you to create a melody, or how does that work?
Usually, it's interesting. Most of my songs come from a place of internal struggle. And I oftentimes go to nature to heal, to release my mind, to pray, to be more present And oftentimes in that space, the prayer voices, the prayer muses will come through and sing through me. So really the songs that come through me are my own prayers, my own medicine. And
They
then
they
band of
feel
music.
very it feels very indigenous to me.
Yeah. And it is in that way that I'm oftentimes in nature when a song comes through. Either that or in the shower.
Can you tell the difference between a song that's come through for you in the shower and one that's come through in nature? No, we won't be able to listen to your albums and go, oh, that's a shower one. One of your albums is called Prayers for the Water. And so do you want to talk a little bit about how that happened and share with our listeners?
Yeah, I would love to. That album was such an act of surrender, which is so fun because that's the energy of the water, right? There's this flow and there's this surrender. I knew that I wanted to create an album with Todd Boston, who was my producer, multi-instrumentalist, dear friend of mine, and we just had a great musical synergy. And I said, okay, Todd, I think it's time to create something. And so I went in and I had a couple of songs in mind and I recorded them. And then I recorded a third another time that I was there. And we realized that the first 3 songs I recorded were to the water, for the water, of the water. And so we did a Kickstarter. And so, well, I'll go back. And so what I realized was this album wanted to be dedicated to our sacred healing waters, you know, the lifeblood of our planet, and the water wanted to be honored through music, through song. And so I just opened up and we did a Kickstarter. I said, this album is called Prayers for the Water. I didn't even know what songs are coming or what's going to be on there yet. And it just mysteriously created itself through me and through Todd. And Tammy Hall, piano player, plays on it. And Jamie Sieber plays her cello and sings. And it was just a gorgeous collaboration.
A real synergy.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you're very connected to the earth and all of her elements, you know, the water, the earth, the trees, but you're also, it feels to me like you're connected to source, or I don't know what you would describe it. How would you?
Source, God, Goddess. You know, to me, it's actually challenging for me to name it. As a child, I was raised in Christian Science.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which I won't go into a lot about it, but the gift that I got from being raised in that religion was that I was taught to have a connection, direct connection to God, direct connection to the divine, and to listen. I was taught at a very early age to listen to the divine energy. And so, you know, there are so many ways to name it. And it is, I think mostly I call that energy the divine energy. Okay. I think that's probably the one that resonates with me the most. But when I'm actually in a prayer state, I'm more in just an open, receptive place. I'll ask a question and then I'm in an open, receptive space. And it can come from anywhere. It could come from a tree, it could come from the water, it could come from wafting through the air, you know.
You and Rose have a lot in common. Is that how you would describe your connection, your inspirations, Rose? What would you say?
Very, very similar. I'm not musically talented, but yeah, just being really quiet and asking a question and then listening for the answer. And it comes pretty quickly. It's actually how Christine and I started this podcast. I got a message to text her and ask if she wanted to do a podcast, and I knew enough to listen.
I love that.
You were watching Sir David Attenborough's?
Yes, I was watching Sir David Attenborough's Our Planet, and I heard this message, it was, I mean, I do hear, I mean, it's not an outside voice, it's a voice that's inside, but it's definitely words. And I heard text Christine and ask her if she'll do a podcast. And
Rose didn't even know what a podcast
I
was.
was like, I don't know what a podcast is. And the message just repeated. And so I sent a message to Christine, and 20 minutes later she answered and she said, yes, I'd love to. And I was like, that was the beginning. That was
Well, and I'd been thinking about doing one for about a year, but I really didn't want to do it by myself. And I didn't know who to reach out to. And Rose and I are connected because of our climate work. So yes, it's all synchronicity is a wonderful thing.
It was divinely orchestrated.
It was divinely orchestrated. Yes.
Yeah. And isn't that fun when we can kind of relax into that flow?
Yes.
And that's one of the things that is a little bit different about our climate podcast as opposed to a lot of the other ones out there, is that we bring in that aspect, the soul aspect, the divine. But it isn't always easy in these crazy times to feel like, okay, we can just relax and everything's going to be okay. I mean, you just had wildfires raging.
Yeah, that was scary.
Yeah.
And you being so close to the divine, when you being in California, were you and when you were sitting in your quiet space, were you hearing the earth crying? Were you hearing messages that you felt like needed to be conveyed in music or about what's going on?
Not in that moment, not when the fires were happening here in Santa Cruz. I mean, if I'm honest, I was really scared.
Yeah.
And I didn't get very quiet I was so busy packing and trying to figure out what I wanted to take with me to evacuate. And yeah, in all honesty, that week or so was not a good week for me. And I was not very connected. I got really scared.
Yeah. And I was sharing with Heather a little while ago when we were chatting before we went live that we actually were evacuated. Rose knows this. And so I understand that, like, because I consider myself a fairly centered person, I have a wellness practice. I connect with my guidance, soul guidance regularly. But it throws you off. And I think it's a good experience because it's a reminder that we maybe have not more work to do, but it's like, okay, we expect things might get tougher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's a trial run. Even with COVID, I don't know what your experience is in Santa Cruz with that, but it's kind of a trial run for a lot of.
That is too. Absolutely. With the fires, what I got out of that was my new language now is, historically, I haven't been great with emergencies. And I'm open to shifting that and changing that. Now with COVID, it came on so slowly that I felt like my system had more time to acclimate to like something big is starting to shift here, and I started to tune into it. And I remember on Easter Sunday, I actually was feeling afraid that morning, thinking about the future and my choir, and we're not going to be able to sing together, and what's happening, And so I started singing, right here now, in this present moment, right here now, I am singing. And then right here now, in this present moment, right here now, I am breathing. And I called myself really present. And throughout the rest of the morning, different layers of the song came through. And it's this gorgeous song that I just recorded, actually. Hasn't been released yet. But I needed to call myself present. So there's that piece of presencing again. When we get into a place of panic or fear, we have to call ourselves present from that. When we get into fear, it's usually past something that happened in the past or future tripping, right? So calling ourselves right here in the moment. Yeah, it's real.
So what occurs to me is that fear shuts down the connection we have with the divine. And maybe that's the divine's way of reminding us to come back to the present.
Beautiful. Love that.
So, sorry, just to push you a bit, what is the divine's way of calling us back?
Well, so I work with a spiritual coach. Christine knows this. And he says that anxiety is a call from our soul to go deeper. So I would say the same thing about fear. So when you're in fear, it's a reminder. When you feel that panic, it's a reminder to just come in to the moment and center yourself and be and remind yourself that you're safe and that you're okay.
But are you safe when a wildfire? I'm just playing devil's advocate if there's a wildfire.
She always plays devil's advocate to me. But that's part of her beauty.
To go back to what Heather was saying, right here, right now, you were safe. You were breathing. You were singing. And so tell us a bit about your choir, which may or may not have been meeting since Easter. And what is that about?
Sure. My women's choir, a 40-voice women's choir called Yalalati, which means women's voices rising in harmony to bless the world. It's just a name that we came up with. And we have been together now for 16 years. 2004. Is that right? Yeah, 2004. I held my first song circle of women because I had been singing in an a cappella trio, and women had started asking me, how do you sing in harmony? How do you do this? We want to do this too. So I just started leading these women's circles, and from there it just snowballed and people began asking us to perform, and now I have this choir of 16 years, and they sang on both albums. They sang on the Prayers for the Water album on 2 tracks, and they sang on Sisters of the Moon for almost every track. I think it's all but one. They are featured on that album. So I just love these women, and we are a community. We're a family of singers. And this time has been really difficult, as I'm sure you can imagine. As soon as we got sheltered, we had to take our rehearsals onto Zoom. And so really, in last spring, our Zoom calls became more about going into breakout groups and connecting with each other and checking in and making sure everybody's okay. And, we would do a little singing, but it wasn't the same. I mean, basically, they're doing a duet with me rather than singing with each other. So it's tricky.
And does that continue then? You're not meeting in person yet?
Well, we are mostly meeting online. We met for the first time in person last Sunday, socially distanced, singing at a church where there are these beautiful hallways outside. So lots of beautiful acoustics, and most of the women wore masks, and we were 6 to 10 feet from each other, and sang and cried and sang and cried some more. Singing is something that uplifts the human spirit and opens the heart, and it is just such a tragedy right now in all of this chaos that we don't have that resource.
Yeah. Isn't that tragic? It really is. You're still connecting, and that when things open up, we don't know when that will be, that there will be much joy to be had.
So much joy.
So then, do you usually perform live?
I used to perform live as a solo artist or with my a cappella quartet. But I don't anymore. I mean, really, all the songs that are coming through me now are for lots of voices.
Okay.
Lots of layers of harmony parts. And, like if you listen to my Sisters of the Moon album, there are so many layers of harmony and parts. And even on my website, there's so many songs that come through me that won't ever be recorded professionally, but they're on my website because they're fun for groups of singers to sing together, and then they can learn the different parts and sing them. But I can't remember what your question was.
It's all right. We're talking about music and joy and COVID and kind of go with the flow here. We're like water. But you mentioned your website, so why don't you share it with our listeners? We will have it linked, the podcast episode page, but it's heatherhoustonmusic.com.
Yeah, and then you'll see you'll see my CDs there for sure, my recorded music, but you'll see more of my classes that I offer. I love to support women in opening their voices, men too, but mostly women. And so you'll see all the classes that I offer to help women open and connect and free.
And do you do that? Do you offer that online?
I do. Yeah. So every Monday night. Yeah. Every Monday night, Sisters in Harmony Global. So I had a Sisters in Harmony circle here on Monday nights that I've been doing, for 16 years. And as soon as shelter in place happened, I said, all right, let's take it online and let's invite the whole world. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know Zoom very well yet, and I just dove in and I said, we're going to figure this out as we go. And, I have hundreds of women on those calls every Monday.
Lovely.
Wow. And so your intention is to get women in touch with their voices, and what is the focus of the call?
The focus of the call really is to help women feel connected to themselves, to their voices, to each other, to community. So many women you can feel the energy of the community there, even though we're on Zoom and even though everyone's on mute. I get everyone dancing, and I have guest artists every week as well. So I'll have 2 different guest artists every week. And so they bring different songs through that we're inviting the participants to sing with us. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll play a pre-recorded track so they can sing harmony parts along after I teach them. And it's just so much, it's fun and it's deep and it's nourishing, and we cry and we laugh and dance. It's so good.
I'm going to have to tune in on Monday night.
Yes, absolutely. I'm thinking that as well, and I've got a few people that I'm in particular. I'm going to tap them on the shoulder and let them know that's happening.
Come play with us.
Yeah, we all know about our culture's prohibition against women speaking their truth. And so it's a lovely way. I love to hear about what you're doing with music because it's so important to get us speaking our truth in these days.
It sure is. I love that you're writing with women too and inviting them to speak their voices through their writing. It's huge.
Yeah, that's what helped me find my voice. In fact, I talked at wellness events and I said, and since that writing class 10 years ago, I basically haven't shut up since.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else that we want to touch on?
Sure. I would love to just say, too, that after women have opened their voices in my song circles or in my choir, many of them want to take that further. And so I started a leadership program, a song leader training, so that women can take the sharing of their voices to the next level. So now I've graduated 2 cohorts of women, and I have a 3rd cohort already signing up for January.
And then do they lead song circles themselves? Is that the intention? Or
yeah, exactly. They lead their own song circles in their own communities. I have a couple of women in Canada, women in Hawaii and the East Coast and Italy,
Nice.
who are now leading Sisters in Harmony circles.
Wow.
Look at the ripples you're sending out at this time, which just needs so much healing. And I just thank you for that. That's really important work.
Thank you.
I just think, yeah, our stories are our greatest medicine. And if you, women speaking or writing or singing, I mean, that is our story. It's as old as time. And it feels like when I was humming, I could feel it really, down in my solar plexus. I could feel that, just that vibration. And it does feel very grounding and freeing. One other question I wanted to ask you, Heather, is are you classically trained, or are you self-trained, or for people like me who don't really feel like they have a voice, but I do love to sing, is there a barrier there? Do I need to have lessons? Can I just, where would I start?
Yeah, well, for you as someone who is already connected to yourself and knows how to listen, you would be able to coach yourself pretty well. I would say come take my Art of Mindful Singing class,
Okay.
which is a merging of vocal coaching and vocal meditation. So really what you're learning to do is deepen your relationship with your voice so that you know how to coach yourself. So I'm really teaching you how to get that connected with your voice so that you know how to do what you want to do, to hear what you want to hear with your voice.
Nice.
So humming, start with the humming and then start with the vowels, playing with the different vowels and feel how they feel in your body.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem very meditative.
Yeah, so I'll to answer your question further though, I was classically trained in college, and my mom was a singer, my grandfather was a singer, so I grew up around people singing.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it wasn't until my late 20s that I really started exploring my voice on my own and became very intimate with my voice, and from there became a better teacher and really help my students get connected with their voices as a tool for healing and expression rather than something that is going to be judged out here on the outside, right? Because that's what everyone's afraid of.
Exactly.
For sure. That's just so wonderful. And before we wrap up entirely, I think we have some good news and an action tip and a sanity tip.
Our good news is I want to start with a quote from Nina Simone that says, an artist's duty is to reflect the times. And so the good news is that artists are heeding that call. And obviously, someone like you, Heather, that's really putting out your connection to the earth and helping other people find that connection. Because art has the power to have great purpose, and it brings out that sense of togetherness. There's a project that I connected with, a woman that I connected with a while ago in Australia, who has started a project called Tamba. And I'll add the link. And it's community-driven songs. I think there's 4 or 5 artists that they put together a song that you can go to their project and download it. And whatever you pay to download their song, they're using that to, all the royalties go to a nonprofit that's helping conserve and rewild the planet. So I think that's very cool. And then there's less musically inclined in New York City. There's the Climate Clock. The two artists, Gan Golan and Andre Boyd, they have put up a giant clock that's a countdown to how long it will take our emissions to burn through our carbon budget. And so, and this isn't the good news, but as of today, it's 7 years and 100 days away from that 1 point, how much we can put into the atmosphere. But I think there's a bunch of other links that I'll add. There's artworks for change and artists and climate change, and it's just building earth connections, building and showcasing through art what's happening and how we can lift ourselves up and inspire. So encouraging. I think, art, like you were saying, Heather, it's, schools have cut their art programs, their music programs. I think it's a shame, because at this point right now, it's really what lifts us.
It sure is.
So we need you more than ever, Heather.
I'm here.
Obi-Wan.
Full in both feet all the way.
Yay.
Thank you. Well, and our action tip is going to be to send our listeners to your website, or where do you want our listeners to find you?
If you would like MP3s that you can download, go to my website because you can purchase them there. That's the best way. That's the best place. So heatherhoustonmusic.com, and you'll see the place where my music is. If you want to stream it, you can go to Spotify or
Pandora,
yeah. YouTube,
Okay.
Any of the platforms.
I like I've watched some of your YouTube videos because it's very cool. The ones, I can't remember which songs, but there's a whole bunch of windows of Heather singing harmony.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
So that's great. And our sanity tip is to hum. Okay, just hum. With some deep breaths and tune into what's happening with your body, and that can shift a whole bunch of energy. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And thank you for making the time to connect with us, Heather. We
That's
really
this week's
appreciate
episode of Earth Feels.
Very
Special thanks
enjoyable.
to
And I hope to catch you
singer-songwriter
on a
Kristen
Monday
Hoffman for generously
Thank you.
allowing
It
us
was
to
so
use
fun
song
to
for the
meet both
ocean.
of you.
Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me.